Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Bible in 1 Year with the Preacher's Husband. Today, we're starting a brand new book, and that book is Ecclesiastes, and we're going to go through chapters 1 through 6 tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to finish Ecclesiastes and do chapters 7 through 12, so that'll get you a head start on tomorrow. So every time we start a new book here with the Bible in 1 year, I like to give a little rundown about what this book is all about. What is Ecclesiastes? What's the point of Ecclesiastes? Well, some people say Ecclesiastes answers the question, what is the meaning of life? That's pretty interesting. Well, maybe we'll find that out in the next 2 days. Who knows? Well, traditionally, Ecclesiastes is ascribed to Solomon as being the author. And that's because the first verse says, the words of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Now, David had a bunch of sons, and any of them could have been teachers, but only one of them was the king in Jerusalem. So that's why they say Solomon wrote this. And he wrote this around 935 BC is where it's said. And in summary, Ecclesiastes shows us that we must not waste our lives in pursuits that, in the light of death, ultimately mean nothing. The book warns about the pursuit of intellectual accomplishments. Ultimately, the wise person and his works, just like the fool and his deeds, end up dying. The book also warns us against wealth and luxury. Those who pursue riches waste their lives in anxiety and toil. Wealth of itself is a fraudulent substitute for true contentment. Likewise, political power is inherently corrupting, and the worst evils in the world are committed by cruel or incompetent people who have power. Irrational zeal and excess for religion also comes in for criticism in Ecclesiastes. We read about that today in chapter 5 and also tomorrow in chapter 7. Ecclesiastes recommends that we enjoy life and fear God, remembering that He is our judge. So, back to that question, what is the meaning of life in Ecclesiastes? Well, this book tells us that materialists seek to find life's meaning in the abundance of possessions or achievements. Now, sensualists on the different side of things, they seek to discover meaning in physical pleasure such as food, sex, excitement, and adventure. Well, another type of person, scholars, they seek to find purpose through intellectual inquiry or wisdom and knowledge. And all of these attempts, we find out, are futile. Absolutely futile and utterly meaningless when it all comes down to it. Life's meaning cannot be discovered, guys. It cannot be discovered. It is only revealed by God. You can't discover it. It is only revealed by God. So if you want to know the meaning of life, you need to know God. And that is my little intro into Ecclesiastes. So I'm going to go through a couple things tonight. The first one is Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 6. This stuck out a little bit to me. And I'm going to go on a history note today. This says, the wind blows to the south and turns to the north. Round and round it goes, ever returning on its course. Wow, that is pretty deep. That's pretty nice. And I'm reminded of a guy named Matthew Maury. Now, he's a little obscure. You may or may not know him. He was born in 1806 and he died in 1873. Now, Matthew Maury, we'll put a picture of him up here. He was nicknamed the Pathfinder of the Seas for having charted the ocean and wind currents while serving in the U.S. Navy. And he was considered the father of modern oceanography. And he was a naval, also known as the father of naval meteorology, and he was later known as the scientist of the sea. And this guy wrote, he said this, he says, I have always found in my scientific studies that when I could get the Bible to say anything on the subject, it afforded me a firm platform to stand upon and a round in the ladder by which I could safely ascend. As our knowledge of nature and her laws has increased, so has our knowledge of many passages of the Bible improved. The Bible called the earth the round world, yet for ages it was heresy for a Christian man to say that the world was round. And finally, sailors circumnavigated the globe and proved the Bible to be right and saved many Christian men of science from the stake. And as for the general system of circulation, which I have been so long endeavoring to describe, the Bible tells it all in a single sentence. The wind goeth toward the south. And this verse continues on. And turns around to the north. The wind whirls about continually and comes again on its circuit. That's pretty fascinating. I kind of like that guy. Kind of do. The next one that I'm going to point out to you is Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 16. And it says, Moreover, I saw under the sun, in the place of judgment, wickedness was there, and in the place of righteousness, iniquity was there. That reminded me a lot of something that President Andrew Jackson did when he was the president. It was actually in July of 1832. Now, don't get me wrong, Andrew Jackson, he couldn't make up his mind what political party he wanted to be involved in. He was a part of the Democratic Republican Party, and then he was only there for maybe a year. Then he became a member of the Jacksonian Democratic Party, and then that party evolved into the Democratic Party as we know it. But it was different back then than it is today. That party did not represent what the Democratic Party today represents, just so you know for that. But in July of 1832, here's what Andrew Jackson did. He vetoed the bank renewal bill, and that prevented the rechartering of the Bank of the United States, believing the bank was unauthorized by the Constitution. Whoo, check that out, the Constitution. Are you familiar with that little word? And he thinks that it concentrated too much economic power in the hands of a small-moneyed elite. Okay, and that's what this verse kind of referring to, is the elite, the iniquity that we get there. And he says this, in the full employment of the gifts of heaven and the fruits of superior industry, economy, and virtue, every man is equally entitled to protection by the law. But when the laws undertake to add to these natural and just advantages artificial distinctions, to grant titles, gratuities, and exclusive privileges to make the rich richer and the potent more powerful, the humble members of society, the farmers, the mechanics, and laborers, have a right to complain of the injustice of their government. There is no necessary evils in government. Its evils exist only in its abuses. If it would confine itself to equal protection and, as heaven does its rains, shower its favors alike on the high and the low, the rich and the poor, it would be an unqualified blessing. In the act before me, there seems to be a wide and unnecessary departure from these just principles. For relief and deliverance, let us firmly rely on that kind providence, which I am sure watches with peculiar care over the destinies of our republic, and on the intelligence and wisdom of our countrymen. Through his abundant goodness and their patriotic devotion, our liberty and union will be preserved. So there you have it. He did not want that bank to be a nationalized bank because of the corruption. And of course, he campaigned a lot on corruption and getting rid of corruption in government. So that's all I have for you today. I hope this has touched you. If it has, click the like button and the subscribe button. Of course, click the little jingle bell so you can get notified the next time I upload a video, which will be tomorrow, for another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the Preacher's Husband. We'll see you then.